Good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast presented by our good friends at Blue Water Climate Control. Be sure and check them out at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com or give them a buzz at 865-299-2290 for whatever your HVAC needs. That's Blue Water Climate Control. They're going to do the right pair the right way the first time. They're taking care of people all over East Tennessee. So be sure and give them a look online or give them a buzz to check out all the latest services that they offer for you. With Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs, plenty to get to in this podcast. And we'll start first with the Tennessee football team, who, guys, apparently still doesn't have a quarterback. And it appears that Josh Heupel is going to take this thing, well, he is definitely going to take this thing into game week without announcing a quarterback. Does he announce somebody before the game, or is this one of those, we're going to announce this over the loudspeaker when we introduce starting lineups? And how surprised are you that he didn't announce somebody on Monday of this week? Austin, I'll start with you.
I'm surprised. I did think if they didn't do it today, they weren't going to do it. And I don't believe they will now. I think they'll take this all the way till they trot Joe Milton out there at 8 o'clock a week from Thursday. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, it just seems a bit bizarre. Again, if you're either one of the other guys and you're following Tennessee's, just their football Twitter account and how they, push highlights out and stuff like that. How do you not know that Joe Milton's not the guy?
Rob, you think they wait and announce it, or you think he announced it Monday? I got a vibe he may announce it next Monday. Just a gut feel.
Maybe
nobody's telling me.
I'm with AP. I mean, it seems pretty clear, that Milton's the guy. And I would imagine, if we had a chance to see any practice this week, we would probably be able to determine that by, how reps were divided up.
And he avoided that question like the plague.
Yes, he got asked that specifically today, how reps were going. He didn't touch it. He didn't touch it with a 10-foot pole that you'd strap a tape recorder to, AP.
Or as I call it, the ball retriever that Jimmy Himes no longer uses on the golf course.
All right, so, but here's the thing. I mean, Josh Heupel didn't really declare anything at his press conference on Monday. I mean, is this? He
just grinned at you a lot, Brent. He just kept grinning at you.
Is this the seismic shift into this is Josh Heupel game week Josh Heupel type deal, or is this there's not a whole lot to talk about because I've kind of ran through the whole roster multiple times Josh Heupel deal, or is it no big deal? Let's just watch this team go play in a little over a week.
I'm just ready to go watch football. I could care less what he announces, what he says. I mean, all those coaches are cut from the same cloth from a standpoint of, they're not going to give away a whole lot. But yeah, he was more vanilla than I thought he would be. But I could care less. Let's just get to a week from Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was the most vanilla we've seen him. I mean, not rude or standoffish like we've seen some coaches be in the not so recent past, but just absolute, coach speak, just nothing, offering nothing, giving probably the most, insightful he got was when he was talking about the linebackers being the most improved position, on the team since the spring, which, everybody could see, but just the total to not get any info out about the quarterbacks. I'm not saying that's his job to share that with us. I mean, he can do whatever he wants, but I was a little disappointed, man. I thought that would be the storyline of today.
Yeah, and we said if it wasn't the storyline today, it's not going to be the storyline this week because there'll be no news about it this week. I'm kind of with Austin. I think it's just time to go play, and I think that it feels like it's to the point that there's really, other than to quote name a starter at the quarterback position, there really is no other significant news until you see what this team looks like. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really answer the question about what's this offense going to look like till you go see them play against somebody else. And I just think that you get to that point in camp, and I think that's where Tennessee is quickly approaching and basically has gotten to as they'll get ready to take on, Bowling Green a week from Thursday night. I mean, do you guys feel like there's position battles up for grabs, or do you think this staff has got their starting 22 pretty much locked up at this point?
I think they're pretty much locked up. I mean, there are certain positions I think you're going to play a lot more than just your starters. So, like, who
Sure.
starts as the number 3 receiver, and
Right.
there'll be a lot of rotation.
Defensive line,
Yeah, I mean,
running back.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that ultimately, especially the secondary, I think it will be Warren Burrell, it'll be Alontae Taylor, it'll be Jalen McCullough, and it'll be Trayvon Flowers. And those other guys will continue to work to see if they can find a way to insert themselves in somewhere. But I just don't see a whole lot of shakeup. I think it'll be kind of the set cast of characters. Who starts beside Jawan Mitchell? Is it Jeremy Banks? I mean, I assume so, but I mean, you don't know till you get out there.
Then for me, Rob, I think the offensive line seems to be pretty set. I think the biggest question is where do they feel like they are behind those guys in terms of any kind of depth. We had Glenn Ellerby talking about how he felt comfortable with 8, 9, even 10 guys. What's that really look like beyond the top 6? Because I think the top 6 are pretty clearly identified at this point when you talk about the Mays brothers, and you got Carvin, and you got Spraggins, and you got Darnell Wright. Out there as your starting 5, after that, after you get past Dane Davis at 6, kind of where do they go from there? I think that's the biggest question mark with that group. It feels like.
Yeah. I mean, I think, RJ Perry, I mean, he looks like $1 million. Is he ready to play football in the SEC? Chris Akporogane, is he, he's battled injuries on and off, and we've seen him get some reps here in camp. Is he ready to be the third guard, the guy that slides in between? James Robinson, where is he at? I mean, they've got some dudes that look good in that, freshman, sophomore, redshirt sophomore range, but nobody's seen them on the field. I mean, none of those guys have gotten any kind of meaningful action. They all, they won't pass you in the combine. Man, that's a good looking kid, but can they play? We don't know. I mean, and I don't think Glenn Ellerby knows either, whether, despite him saying that he's got 9 or 10 guys he thinks could start. I mean, I think he's getting ready to find out. He's got some likely looking candidates, some suspects, but whether they're prospects or not yet, we don't know yet.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the point where this team has gotten to is kind of, you don't know. And the only way you're going to know is to go play, right? I mean, to figure out what guys can do what, the only way to get the answer really moving forward is to go play again. Because, again, you're not going to put the ball down in scrimmage. I know they'll do some good on good 11-on-11 work, Austin, but there is no put the football down and go play in scrimmage. That's why you're to that point where it's time to go play and see what you got and see how some of these guys react under the lights and see how they handle themselves moving forward. Because I think you're to that point I guess is what I keep trying to drive home. I'll keep what I'm saying. Yeah,
fall camp's it's a long grind. I mean, think about it. We're still 10 days out from the first game. And, I mean, it seems like forever since they had that second scrimmage. Doesn't it to you guys? I mean, it just seems like they went scrimmage, a couple days of scrimmage, and no more scrimmages. And it just seems like such a long time ago. So I think they're to that point, hitting somebody else, playing, figuring out who they are. I mean, Brent, what you said is 100% accurate. Until they go out there and play, and it's more than just Bowling Green. Until they go out there and play Bowling Green and Pitt, and really Tennessee Tech too. We'll throw that in there. Those first 3 games, at that point, I think you'll kind of know what this team is in a lot of ways, especially after that Pittsburgh game. Yeah, no doubt about that. And again, you can only find so many answers by hitting against your own, your own teammates for that length of period of time. So Thursday night, Tennessee, a week from Thursday, Tennessee takes on Bowling Green. Austin, I'll ask you this question. Let's set the bar somewhere. This is going to have an alternative uniform feel. We know we got the lights coming. You got some change in firework displays. Apparently those are going to be a little closer maybe to the stadium than they have been in years past, a little more involved in the pregame than we've seen in years past. I think 3 months ago they were going to go alternative uniform, Brent. I don't think so anymore. I think they'll go traditional orange come next Thursday.
Regular standard home uniform. Orange jerseys, white pants, white
That's
cleats.
Correct.
You white cleat guys? You guys like the white cleats?
Both. I like both. The more Tennessee can wear, like some games, I think in some uniforms, I think black looks good. Some white looks good. So I mean, I don't think that I'm not necessarily one or the other. I think they should do both.
Hubbard, if I was Max Perrott, they'd be rolling out in all orange and black cleats every home Saturday.
That's what you would do?
Orange pants, orange jerseys, black cleats every Saturday.
That's your uniform of choice, Rob Lewis?
That's it.
There you go. I don't really care one way or the other about the cleats. I mean, I really don't. I just think some people get, pretty caught up, and that's why I asked, Austin, what you thought about that. About it. You think, Austin, that an alternative uniform is coming at some point, just not in game one, right?
Yes, I do think it's coming at some point this year. We've all talked about black. Question is what do they do with helmet?
But not for week one on anything. It doesn't appear and feel like. Hey, what was
Correct.
your Austin? Before we get to a couple other big topics, we got some hoops things to get to, a little recruiting stuff and everything. What was your takeaway from the Peyton Manning conversation you had Sunday night with him on the Nation? What was your personal takeaway from the 20 minutes you guys got to spend with him on the Nation?
That he loves Tennessee. I mean, he always loved Tennessee, and just loves the people. And we talked. Rob referenced Max, but Frage, Hawk, Carmen, just really enjoy, and enjoys his time getting back here. Is enjoying retirement. For somebody that loved football and had a tough time saying goodbye, I think he's really enjoying his post-football life, and I think you're going to only see Peyton more and more involved going forward in some capacity, whether it's NFL ownership or whatever else. I think you'll continue to see him hugely involved, and I think you'll continue to see him hugely involved around here.
So the sheriff was a visitor on the Nation on Sunday night. We'll see him in Knoxville at least once this fall, maybe more than once, depending on how things go with his schedule. Of course, he's got the Monday Night Football thing that he's going to be doing, which will be interesting to listen to and to see what that's going to be all about as well. But if you didn't get a chance to hear that interview, you can see that. You can find that link at volquest.com. It's also on YouTube as well if you didn't get a chance to hear the interview that Austin and Chris Lowe did on the Nation Sunday night with Peyton Manning. All right, let's jump into this. This is kind of a big picture recruiting thing. The NCAA is going to meet later today or later this week with the thought of maybe immediately changing the scholarship numbers, assigning class numbers, based on the fact that you've got adjusting to the transfer life is what it basically boils down to, because so many teams are under the 85 cap. And so there's a thought process that for every transfer that you lose, not that you run off, but transfer that leaves, person that leaves your program, you're going to be able to replace that person with a signee up to a set number amount. So for example, if you lose 5, then you would be able to sign 30. If you lose 10, that cap might be at 7, and 32 might be the max number you can lose. You guys' thoughts on that? But first and foremost, and we'll dive into a little deeper, but just your initial thought on that.
First of all, and I'm serious, I want your opinion. How do you determine someone you lose versus someone you run off? Because a lot of times the kid announces like he was leaving on his own.
Oh, I think that. I mean, I think that's. I don't think you can determine that. I think that's the first flaw in the whole deal, is that nobody's going to be deemed I got run off. I mean, it's all going to be orchestrated and set up that Jimmy,
because the
left
kid
on
wants
his
it
own
that
accord.
way.
Yeah, they left on his own accord. Nobody's. I mean, so and no coach is going to say, yeah, we ran him off. We don't want that number back. So that's not going to happen. I mean, so I think that's an impossible scenario. That's the first obvious thing that jumps out at you that way.
I think it's great for anybody that's going through a coaching change, because I think naturally when you go through a coaching change, some kids are going to leave. And some rosters are going to get picked over by other schools. And so that allows a new coach to come in and say, hey, these schools cherry picked our roster, but I'm going to be able to go out and sign now 8 additional guys.
And Rob, I mean, part of everything I've read about this and looked at this, and Ross Dellinger from Sports Illustrated has had the most comprehensive coverage on this that I've seen out there. One of the concerns that administrators have conference commissioners have is there's a fear that there's going to be fewer high school kids recruited and signed because coaches are going to hold back scholarships for transfers, and that there's not going to be as many, I guess, opportunities for high school kids. I don't know that I buy that coaches are going to save spots for transfers. I don't know how many kids are going to, quote, not be recruited now because of that. Maybe they have 34 options instead of 42 options to pick from, but I don't see it cutting back that way in that regard. I do think, as Austin pointed out, though, you do have to help some schools who go through major attrition, because it's probably not the healthiest thing to be playing at 63 scholarships or 65 scholarships.
Yeah, I mean, if it's still, if everybody still has 85 scholarships, I mean, there's going to be opportunities for high school kids, I would think. I mean, it may not, maybe there's a couple less Power 5 opportunities, but I mean, there's, like I say, there's still, you still got 85 scholarships to give. So, I mean, I can see that a little bit, but I don't think it's huge. I'm with you guys. I think it's a really good deal for colleges themselves. I mean, because as you say, what good is it to have 85 limit if you're playing, you go through a coaching change, you got 71 guys on scholarship because you couldn't sign more than 25.
I think it's huge for high school kids, because I think inevitably, if they didn't go with more than 25, Brent, I think you were going to end up with schools taking less high school kids to save room for portal guys.
Well, I mean, I think they're going to be that, but I don't think it was going to be significant. I mean, I don't think a kid was going to be stuck at home without having opportunities if he's a good enough player, because everybody was going to pass on him because they didn't want to give him a spot because they were going to hold it for a transfer kid. I mean, I get the concern that somebody's looking to take, 10, 12 transfers maybe and only sign 15 high school kids. But I just don't think that was going to be the trend. I don't think there's enough players of that ilk in the transfer portal that somebody would want to give up half of their signing class for transfer kids. Again, maybe in a coaching change world, maybe that's a possibility. But I mean, if you sit there and look, how realistic is it that you can say, okay, half of our signing class are going to be transfers. You're going to take 10 to 15 transfers every year at the Power 5 level. I don't think there's that many worthy kids that you're going to be able to land. That would be like sweeping everybody in the free agent market if you're in the NFL, and that's just not realistic to me. But I do understand the concern and the look of that if schools are signing 18 kids from high school and they're holding 7 spots for transfers. I mean, I understand how that looks. Here's the other concern I have for it is, in typical NCAA fashion, they're talking about making this effective immediately. Okay, like for this class. But they're talking about it being a 1-year deal and then they're going to revisit it. Well, Austin, it's August 23rd. I mean, how many kids have schools already said, hey, we're not taking you because we don't have enough room for this, and that kid's committed elsewhere? You can circle back around to that kid and say, oh, by the way, we've got 7 more scholarships to give that we didn't know we had 2 weeks ago. Please come like us again, even though we told you we didn't have room for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you just said. My thing on the numbers were like, let's say that they take the number to 28, and they, all of a sudden schools are now going to sign 25 high school kids and which gets back to that original number, and they use 3 spots for transfers. I'm just saying, like, inevitably when you start doing 3 and 4 per school, even if it's just 2 and 3 per school, all that adds up to however many kids, not going Power 5 or going to another, makes the lower classifications, a little bit stronger. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, to not kind of give them any kind of time to build towards this moment. I mean, you're right. It does put you in this weird spot to where, if you're a school that's kind of kept the seat warm with kids, even though you didn't have room for them, maybe that benefits you. And if not, then it does put you in this very weird spot.
Yeah, it certainly does. So we'll see what happens with that one moving forward, how that affects things. It'll be interesting to see if that changes Tennessee's thought process when they get ready to self-impose something, because one of the easy things to self-impose was a scholarship reduction on the 85 because Tennessee was going to be way under it. But if you're going to have an opportunity to increase your numbers, does that change how many kids that or how many scholarships you self-impose if Tennessee ever gets to that point in this investigation? We'll see if that happens.
I'm not sure they're going to self-impose anything.
My stance is not to do it at this point in time with everything we've seen out there.
Just don't even do it at all.
No, just
nothing at all. No scholarships, no fine, no reduction in evals, obviously no postseason ban. Just let.
I think they're
just
going to keep
go.
pushing it off. Keep pushing it off. See what happens.
Interesting. We'll see. The chancellor is scheduled to be on Volquest along with the athletics director on Wednesday night. We'll see if either one of them elects to make any kind of public comment on where the investigation stands. My guess is no. Danny White, let me correct this. Danny White has said publicly he got his hand slapped.
Said on the Nation.
He said it on the Nation that he got his hand slapped for talking about it. That did not come from the chancellor. He did not get his hand slapped from the chancellor. From everybody that I have spoken with, I know we mentioned that in the war room. That's what I was led to believe by multiple people, but I am told that came from the university's legal people, not from the chancellor herself, but from the legal people. And it's the legal side of things that are telling them they cannot offer any public comment, or at least that's been the case. We'll see what happens on Wednesday night. All right, let's move on to some other recruiting things. We're going to circle back to football recruiting here as we wrap up. But first, Rob, on the hoops recruiting news, you dropped a pretty significant size nugget on Monday regarding Tennessee hoops recruiting. Everybody wants to know, are they done and everything, looking forward to the future classes and all the names that you've talked about? What's going on? What's Rick Barnes and his staff working on right now in recruiting, and kind of where's a couple things playing out numbers wise for the Vols?
Yeah, Monday they brought in New York City point guard Zakai Ziegler and his family for an official visit. A kid that really, came from way off the radar this summer, but he's the kind of kid that we've talked about you'd see in football and basketball, that because of COVID and limited exposure opportunities before his junior year and then during his junior year, nobody had seen this kid, or at least not many people had seen this kid. He goes to the Peach Jam in Augusta, and Rick Barnes and the whole Tennessee staff are basically stalking Brandon Miller, top 10 prospect from Nashville. The Ziegler kid plays Miller's AAU team with Coach Barnes and everybody in the gym. And he blows them up. He goes for 22 points, 10, 12 assists, and is one of the best players on the court. Tennessee offers pretty much immediately. This is back in July. And I guess the real twist in this one is that Tennessee's talking to him about reclassifying into the 21 class, which, classes have already started on campus, as we all know, but drop add date is still several days away. If the young man makes a very quick decision, he could be here and in class, in the coming days. I don't think anybody except for Tennessee is talking to him about reclassifying. Tennessee does have room for one more, and I would say this is one to keep an eye on, to say the least. A lot of people are scratching their heads about why offer this kid this late. Right now you got BJ Edwards coming in, you got Kenny Chandler on campus. I just tell you, Coach Barnes' thought process with the way the transfer portal is now, that you don't ever need to have an open scholarship. You want guys, and this is a kid that is a 4-year player, most likely. And this is the kind of guy that they want to sprinkle in with the Kennedy Chandlers, with the Brandon Huntley Hatfields, with the Jonas Adus, guys that are probably, maybe 1 or 2 year players. And this is a guy that they saw in person, they liked a lot. And I would trust their evaluations if I was a fan.
Well, and here's the biggest thing to me. He's a point guard. You can much like you can never have too many quarterbacks, you can never have too many point guards and or big men in basketball. And to have you add, if they're able to add Case and Wallace to go along with what they already have with BJ Edwards committed and Kennedy Chandler already here, like, to me, it just helps you solidify a position that, heck, 8 years ago, Rob, they struggled to get point guards at times.
Yeah, and I would also add this: not that Kennedy Chandler is a kid that takes things for granted or isn't a hard worker, because he is. He's a really hard worker. But also, someone close to the program mentioned this to me. They would not mind to have a guy on the roster that would push Kennedy daily in practice, that would get after him. It would be tough competition, and that's something that they think the Ziegler kid would be.
The reclassifying thing, Rob, has become a little more commonplace the last few years. Is that here to stay? I mean, you think
Oh,
enough
yeah.
kids are comfortable with that?
Totally.
Do you think it's just so they can start their clock to get paid, to get to the? Is that why kids are willing to do it the way that they have been? I know you can't do that. That's hard to do in football. I know it's easier to make that transition in basketball. But why do you think that's become more popular, and why is it here to stay in basketball?
No, I don't know that across the board it's a I mean, in some cases, yeah. I mean, like when you see a top 10 guy like Marvin Bagley a couple of years ago that went to Duke, I mean, he and his family are talking about getting to that second contract in the NBA, a year earlier. But no, I don't think that's the case with the Ziegler kid. And I don't know what his age situation is, but a lot of these guys, when they reclassify, are just going back to the class they should have been in the first place.
Because they were redshirted their freshman year of high school, or redshirted in the 8th grade.
Something along some, and again, I don't know that that's the case with this young man, but a lot of instances that is the case.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on, and obviously we'll keep track of that very closely in the coming days, because if there's news there, it'll have to come quickly with the academic calendar at Tennessee with classes already started. All right, Austin, let's wrap up this podcast with some football recruiting. You were in Nashville, had a chance to visit with Addison Nichols. It was a rough night for his team. Had a chance to see the Lipscomb team play out there. Walter Nolan's played a high school football game now. Tennessee seems to be working, on all fronts. On the recruiting side of things, getting ready to go on the road another week and recruit. Give everybody kind of a snapshot of the last few days in terms of notes and anything you picked up in your travels in Nashville and beyond.
Well, I stopped at the Pilot in Cookeville about 1 a.m. and it was a scary situation. I didn't pick up anything there except for Kit Kat and a Mellow Yellow.
No Dr. Pepper? All right.
No, it was Mellow Yellow.
It must
I
have
was,
been really
I was
late.
trying to stay awake, man.
Trying to
I got
stay
up early with them and played golf.
I'm partial to the Mount Juliet Pilot when I'm leaving Nashville. At the Arby's combo.
I'll tell you the kid that stood out to a lot of people this weekend. Now, Tennessee's yet to offer, but he's very much on the radar. It's Javonte Mackey. He's a 2022. This is one of those maybe COVID casualties. He moved from Chicago to Whitehaven, didn't play a year ago, really has nothing on tape except for a couple of scrimmages this fall. And then his Friday night game, a win for Whitehaven. And, he looks the part. And the biggest, if you go and, watch his huddle film, the play that stands out is not the sacks and the big hits. It's a play where he over pursues and then chases a kid down from behind after being about 10 yards behind him and strips the ball. So a guy that, again, it's on Tennessee's radar. They're doing their due diligence, kind of seeing where, what this kid's all about, but someone that at least is a name to keep an eye on that may get an offer. Addison Nichols, Addison Nichols looked fine the other night. He said nothing around him, there were plenty of plays in his limited offensive opportunities, because trust me, they were limited. They went 3 and out a lot where, he mauled his guy, but everybody else around him got dominated. And so, at the next level, I think Addison's a right tackle or a guard, and that's my opinion. But I thought he looked really, really solid. Just didn't have anything around him. The kids at Lipscomb, they're going to continue to get better. The Lipscomb quarterback, Luther Richardson, Trent Dilfer told us about him when we were over there in the spring. He was 16 for 16, looks really good looking kid. If Tennessee or anybody else wanted to take a second quarterback in this class, he would be a priority for me. He throws a good ball, looks really, really good. And then as far as recruits, we're still, Alec Manor, going to do something. All the momentum seems to be with Stanford. We'll see. And then from there on out, I think it could be a while on anybody else that's going to pull the trigger.
Yep, and we'll see where Tennessee elects to go when they can hit out on the road. We'll see if Walter Nolan's going to be here a week from Thursday. It feels like he's going to, and if anybody else makes it in for an unofficial visit. And then the bigger thing is, where's Tennessee going on Friday and Saturday following their season opener against Bowling Green, because life changes come September 1 when you can get out and do those get out and get evaluations. And there's places you need to go and check on some of these kids that are going to be popping up on the radar screen because you didn't see them a year ago, or maybe
First time in a year and a half they'll be on the road.
Yeah, and maybe they didn't come to your camp. I mean, you want to go check some of those guys out. So be a big weekend for Tennessee on the recruiting trail. We'll obviously have much more on that in another week or so in terms of where Tennessee may be going, where they might not be going in week 1. And we'll continue to track new names as they pop up and as they surface on the recruiting front. We'll continue to track those and continue to watch some kids play on Friday nights and Saturdays as well. All right, Tennessee is just over a week away from football game, thankfully, and we're going to continue to get you ready for game day. We got lots of stuff coming up throughout the rest of this week and this weekend as well to get you ready for the season opener. That's going to do it for this Tuesday edition of the Blue Water Climate Control Volquest.com podcast. For Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody.